In the late 1960s, Sly and the Family Stone burst out of San Francisco with a sound that nobody had heard before. With their electrifying mix of funk, soul, rock, and psychedelia, they didn't just change music, they changed the culture. But behind the vibrant colors and chart-topping hits was a darker story of brilliance pushed to the edge. Sly Stone, the visionary frontman, went from musical prophet to recluse, battling demons that fame only made harder to escape. And while some members soared, others faded into hardship, tragedy, or silence. In this video, we're taking you on a journey through time. Sly and the Family Stone, members then and now in 2025. What became of the original lineup? Who found peace? Who found faith? And who paid the highest price? You might think you know their story, but what happened after the music stopped will surprise you. Let's dive in. Sly Stone. Sly Stone wasn't just a musician. He was a movement, a mad genius, a messenger of joy and unity wrapped in sequins and sweat. As the frontman of Sly and the Family Stone, he brought a kaleidoscope of sound and color to a country teetering on division, fusing funk, soul, rock, gospel, and psychedelia into something entirely new. But behind the revolutionary music and defiant fashion, Sylvester Stewart was a man at war with himself. Born on March 15, 1943 in Denton, Texas, Sly moved to Vallejo, California, with his religious family and grew up steeped in gospel music. A child prodigy, he was producing, writing, and performing music by his teens. By the time Sly and the Family Stone exploded in the late 1960s with hits like Dance to the Music, Everyday People, and I Want to Take You Higher, Sly wasn't just a chart topper. He was a prophet for peace and power in a time of chaos. What made the band different wasn't just the sound. It was the message and the makeup. Black and white, male and female, funk and fury. Sly and the Family Stone wasn't just integrated, it was radical in its harmony. But as the music soared, so did the pressure. And Sly, already living under the weight of genius, began to crumble under something heavier: cocaine. By the early 1970s, that exuberant voice of unity began to distort. Friends watched in confusion as the cheerful, soft-spoken Sylvester gave way to the increasingly paranoid, volatile figure called Sly Stone. Drug addiction deepened the split. Missed shows became common. Recording sessions turned chaotic. And by 1975, the original Family Stone was finished. Yet Sly didn't stop. Not entirely. He released solo albums, High on You, Heard You Missed Me, Well, I'm Back, but none captured the spirit he had once summoned. He made rare appearances, like at the 1993 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, where he vanished before the performance and only emerged to accept the award. In 2006, he shocked the world by showing up at the Grammys, his first live performance in nearly 20 years. His descent was as dramatic as his rise. By 2011, the man who once lived on a vineyard estate in Northern California was reported to be living in a white camper van in a back alley of Los Angeles. Years of substance abuse and financial mismanagement had left him nearly destitute. In 2015, a court awarded him $5 million in unpaid royalties, only for the ruling to be overturned due to a contract he had signed away decades earlier. His personal life was no less turbulent. Sly married model actress Kathy Silva in 1974 during a sold-out show at Madison Square Garden, an over-the-top ceremony featuring gold glitter, rejected plans for flying angels, and a symbolic Dove release that never happened. They separated 2 years later after their son was mauled by Sly's dog. Silva later told People magazine, "I didn't want that world of drugs and weirdness." Stone had several children, including Sylvester Jr., with Silva, Fun, with bandmate Cynthia Robinson, and Novena Carmel, a singer and public radio host in Los Angeles. Though estranged from much of his family in later years, Those who knew him still spoke of his unpredictable charm and flashes of brilliance, even as his world shrank to four van walls and fading memories. On June 9, 2025, Sly Stone passed away at the age of 82 at his home in Granada Hills, Los Angeles. His family revealed he had died of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and other underlying health issues. It was a quiet end for a man who once shouted to the heavens with a megaphone of funk. Though addiction cut his legacy short, his influence remains eternal. Without Sly, there would be no Prince, no Lenny Kravitz, no Outkast, no Bruno Mars. As Sly once said, if there were a lot of songs to sing, then everybody got to sing. If we have something to suffer or a cross to bear, we bear it together. His music, bursting with both joy and protest, still pulses through speakers worldwide. Freddy Stone. Freddy Stone was never the loudest voice in Sly and the Family Stone, but his presence was vital, steady, and soul-deep. As the band's guitarist, co-lead vocalist, and quiet backbone, he helped shape a revolutionary sound that fused funk, rock, soul, and psychedelia into one electrifying blend. But while others chased the spotlight or spiraled into chaos, Freddy walked a different path, one that led him not to fame, but to faith. Born Frederick Stewart in Vallejo, California, Freddy grew up in a deeply religious and musical household. His father played the violin, harp, and guitar. His mother played both piano and guitar and welcomed children of every background into their home, instilling in Freddy a sense of racial harmony long before it became a national conversation. He picked up the guitar at 12, and by the time he finished high school, despite being expelled from Vallejo High for fighting and later becoming student body president at Benicia High, music had already marked him as chosen. In 1966, at just 19, Freddy co-founded Sly and the Family Stone alongside his siblings, Sly and Rose. As the band's guitarist and a primary vocalist, Freddy was a pillar in the group's rise. From everyday people to family affair, the band's message of love, inclusion, and rebellion was carried on Freddy's 6 strings. His tight, rhythmic playing held together songs that otherwise soared into sonic experimentation. But as the 1970s progressed, the utopian spirit of the band began to fade. Fame, pressure, and addiction splintered the group. While Sly fell deeper into drugs and paranoia, Freddy began to pull back. By the late 70s, he stepped away from the music business. He signed a brief solo deal with Motown, but something bigger than music was calling. In 1980, Freddy had a spiritual awakening. The same hands that once gripped a guitar on stage before thousands now held a Bible. In 1988, he was ordained as a pastor. By 1994, he officially became Pastor Frederick Stewart, taking over the pulpit at the Evangelist Temple Fellowship Center on Sonoma Boulevard in his hometown of Vallejo. For the past 3 decades, Freddy has quietly served as a spiritual guide in the same city where his music dreams began. While his brother's life unraveled under fame and addiction, Freddy found healing and purpose in ministry. He rarely sought attention, even after being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993 with the rest of the Family Stone. Today, at age 78, Freddy Stone lives not as a former rock star, but as a spiritual mentor, husband, and father figure to many. He still plays music, only now it's in the form of worship, performed in small sanctuaries rather than arenas. To those who knew him only through the hits, it may seem like he disappeared. But in truth, Freddy Stone simply went home. Larry Graham. Long before he helped change the way the world heard the bass guitar, Larry Graham was just a boy from Beaumont, Texas, raised in a musical household where rhythm ran deep. Born on August 14, 1946, to talented parents, his mother a pianist and singer, his father a guitarist, Larry's destiny was written not in stardom, but in sound. He didn't just play the bass, he reinvented it. Graham's revolutionary slap-pop technique developed while playing with his mother's band to mimic a drummer they couldn't afford, would become the very heartbeat of funk. And when he joined Sly and the Family Stone in 1967, that heartbeat pulsed through a new generation. With tracks like Thank You, Falatin Me Be Myself Agin, Dance to the Music, and Everyday People, Larry's thunderous grooves turned background rhythm into frontline power. His presence wasn't flashy, no glitter or wild vocals, but it was seismic. He laid the foundation on which the band's explosive mix of funk, soul, and rock stood. But even within this revolutionary group, a multiracial, mixed-gender symbol of 1960s unity, tensions simmered. By 1972, the dream had begun to unravel. Drug use, paranoia, and deepening rifts made collaboration nearly impossible. After a post-show brawl and a chilling rumor that Larry had hired a hitman to kill Sly Stone, Graham fled, literally. He and his wife climbed out of a hotel window, escaping into the night with help from saxophonist Pat Rizzo. He never looked back. From those ashes, Larry built his own empire. In 1973, he formed Graham Central Station, a powerhouse funk band that gave him the freedom to lead. With hits like Hair and The Jam, the band carried funk into the disco age. But in 1980, Graham surprised the world with a softer side. One in a Million You became a top 10 pop hit. That same decade brought another transformation. In 1975, Graham became one of Jehovah's Witnesses, a decision that would ground his life in purpose beyond the stage. His faith wasn't quiet, it rippled through the industry, most notably when he introduced Prince to the religion. The two formed a deep bond, leading to years of collaboration. Graham appeared on Prince's tours, albums, and even his beautiful Strange and Rave Unto the Year 2000 specials. Despite his musical success, Larry Graham's personal life has remained remarkably private. He is the half-brother of Dennis Graham, father to Canadian rapper and global star Drake, making Larry the uncle of one of hip-hop's modern giants. In the 2000s and 2010s, Larry reunited with Graham Central Station, bringing their high-octane funk around the world. He continued to perform with the same passion that fueled him in the 60s, appearing at festivals like Bonnaroo and touring globally through 2011's Funk Around the World tour. In 2020, Rolling Stone ranked him number 7 on their list of the 50 greatest bassists of all time. Today, at 78 years old, Larry Graham remains a living legend, a man who turned the bass into a lead voice, who walked away from chaos to build something purer, and who never stopped evolving. Rose Stone. In a band that broke every rule and rewrote every rhythm, Rose Stone stood out, not for wild costumes or onstage antics, but for a voice that could quiet chaos and make a crowd believe in joy again. As the only woman in Sly and the Family Stone's core lineup, she wasn't just a singer or keyboardist. She was the spiritual balance in a band that danced constantly between brilliance and collapse. Born Rosemary Stewart in Vallejo, California, Rose was raised in a devout Christian household alongside her brothers Sly and Freddy. Church wasn't just a place of worship. It was a school of music, discipline, and purpose. Her mother played piano and guitar, her father played violin and harp, and their house was often filled with children of every race and background. That openness to difference and that grounding in faith would shape her forever. In 1966, when her brother Sly assembled a multiracial, mixed-gender supergroup, Rose didn't hesitate. With her platinum wig, gospel-trained voice, and calm presence, she became the emotional center of Sly and the Family Stone. Her harmonies lit up anthems like Everybody is a Star and You Can Make It If You Try, and her keyboard work helped drive the band's genre-defying sound. But being in a family band came with more than the usual drama, as Sly's drug use and erratic behavior intensified in the 1970s. The dream they had built together began to unravel. After years of turmoil, the band officially fell apart in 1975. Rose stepped away, not just from the group, but from the spotlight. Still, the music never left her. That same year, she married Bubba Banks, Sly's former manager and producer. She released a solo album on Motown Records under the name Rose Banks and briefly tried to carry her sound into a new chapter. But what followed was not chart success. It was quiet strength. In the 1980s and 1990s, she reinvented herself as one of the most respected and sought-after session singers in the industry. You can hear her on tracks by Michael Jackson, Ringo Starr, Fish, and even Robbie Williams. She brought gospel fire to Sandra Crouch's Grammy-winning 1983 album We Sing Praises, where she delivered a stirring solo on Power in the Blood. And for many years, she remained active in the gospel music world, closely connected to the Crouch family and Christ Memorial COGIC in California. But her most meaningful work would return her to her roots. Since the 1990s, Rose has been part of the music ministry at her brother Freddy's church in Vallejo, using her voice to uplift congregations instead of stadiums. She and her daughter Lisa Stone, a gifted singer in her own right, have performed together in church and on tour, including a notable stretch as part of Elton John's backing vocal group in 2011 and 2012. In 2006, Rose joined a rare reunion of Sly and the family Stone, standing once again beside the musicians who had helped her change the world. And though she never chased fame, she has been honored for it. In 1993, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alongside her bandmates. Today, at 77 years old, Rose Stone is not just a legend of funk. She's a living example of grace, resilience, and quiet power. Cynthia Robinson. In a band that shattered barriers and rewrote the sound of American music, Cynthia Robinson made history, loudly, boldly, and unapologetically. As the lone trumpeter and one of the few female instrumentalists in the male-dominated world of funk and rock, she didn't just play notes, she commanded attention. Her horn wasn't just part of Sly and the family Stone's groundbreaking sound, it was a statement. Born January 12, 1944, and raised in Oak Park, a working-class neighborhood in Sacramento, California, Cynthia's path to music began in grade school with the flute. But when she reached high school, there were no flutes available. Instead, she was pushed toward the clarinet, an instrument she didn't want. It was a fellow student, practicing trumpet in a corner room, who unknowingly handed her destiny into her hands. "I knew it could sound good if you worked on it," she later recalled. So she did. The trumpet wasn't kind at first. Everything she played came out wrong. Worse yet, as a black girl playing a white boy's instrument, she was ridiculed by peers and discouraged by teachers. But Cynthia refused to quit. Her first trumpet came from a beatnik who let her keep it in exchange for performing at one of his parties. It was corroded and smelled awful, but she cleaned it, soaked it, and made it her own. From that point on, so was the music. In 1966, Robinson joined her childhood friend, Sly Stone, in forming Sly and the Family Stone, a radical fusion of funk, rock, soul, and psychedelia wrapped in racial and gender integration. She wasn't just a background player. Her trumpet lines punched through every track. Her voice, too, fierce and commanding, can be heard rallying the crowd on hits like Dance to the Music. Cynthia became the first black female trumpet player inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an honor she earned in 1993 with her bandmates. But her journey wasn't without pain. As Sly's descent into drug addiction began to fracture the band, she held on longer than most. Even after the family Stone officially collapsed in 1975, Cynthia kept playing. She was the only original member to continue performing with Sly in the years that followed. In the 1990s, she joined her cousin Larry Graham in Graham Central Station, reigniting the funk they once created together. She also performed with funk legends like George Clinton and Prince, bringing her fire and soul into new generations of sound. And in 2006, Cynthia reunited once again with surviving members of Sly and the Family Stone, returning to the stage with the same confidence that had once stunned Woodstock. But behind the scenes, Robinson led a quieter, deeply personal life. She was a mother of 2 daughters, including Fun Stone, her child with Sly Stone. While her private relationship with Sly was rarely discussed, her devotion to her daughters was evident. Fun would go on to join a Family Stone tribute band, carrying on her mother's musical legacy. By the 2010s, Cynthia's health had begun to decline. Yet she kept performing, still touring, still playing, still blowing that horn with the same fire she'd had as a teenage girl, defying stereotypes in her Sacramento high school band room. On November 23, 2015, Cynthia Robinson passed away at her home in Carmichael, California, following a battle with cancer. She was 71st Greg Errico. In a band defined by its chaos and brilliance, Greg Errico was the rare constant, the calm center in a storm of sound. As the original drummer and youngest founding member of Sly and the Family Stone, he brought more than rhythm. He brought restraint, precision, and power. His drumming didn't just keep time, it told stories. Born in San Francisco, California on September 1, 1949, Greg grew up in the city's diverse neighborhoods at a time when genres like jazz, soul, and psychedelic rock were colliding. His early influences ranged from Elvin Jones to Ringo Starr, and by the time he was in his teens, he was already a seasoned gig drummer on the Bay Area club circuit. Then in 1966, at just 17, he got the call that would change his life. Sly Stone was forming a band. That band would become Sly and the Family Stone, and Greg's drumming would form the muscular, intricate backbone of a revolutionary sound. From Dance to the Music to I Want to Take You Higher, Errico's syncopated hi-hats and clean backbeats were the architecture beneath the band's joyful chaos. He was the groove that never wavered, whether they were playing Woodstock in 1969 or tearing down walls in the studio. But behind the curtain, the group was falling apart. Drug use, paranoia, and growing tensions within the band began to strain even the most loyal members. In 1971, Greg became the first to leave, walking away not in anger, but in quiet disillusionment. As he later explained, the music was getting lost in the mess. His departure marked the beginning of the end of the original Family Stone. What followed was not a retreat, but a renaissance. Errico joined the jazz fusion group Weather Report on tour in 1973 to 74, where his drumming on Boogie Woogie Waltz became legendary. He never recorded in studio with them, but Joe Zawinul later said no one had ever played the song better. That same year, he collaborated with Carlos Santana and Buddy Miles on their live album, and in 1974, he joined David Bowie for the Diamond Dogs tour, bringing his signature style to rock's most theatrical moment. Errico would go on to work with an astonishing array of legends: Betty Davis, Jerry Garcia, Journey, the Pointer Sisters, Grateful Dead, and Larry Graham among them. As a producer and drummer, his touch could be felt across funk, jazz, and rock. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, Greg remained active with the reformed Quicksilver Messenger service and produced jazz recordings for big band vocalist Jamie Davis, including collaborations with members of the Count Basie Orchestra. He returned to national attention in 2006 when he reunited with most of his Family Stone bandmates for the Grammy Awards tribute to Sly Stone. But his influence didn't stop with the stage. In 2024, Errico served as executive producer on Basie Swings the Blues, which went on to win the Grammy for Best Large Jazz Ensemble Album. His legacy has also found new life in unexpected places. Hip-hop producers have sampled Errico's Family Stone drum breaks on hundreds of tracks, and in 2014, a scientific study ranked him as the most musically connected artist of all time, based on network centrality and influence, higher than Elvis, the Beatles, or Miles Davis. Today, at age 76, Greg Errico resides in Las Vegas, where he continues to produce, perform, and preserve the sounds he helped create. Jerry Martini. In every band, there's someone who sees the spark before the fire. For Sly and the Family Stone, that person was Jerry Martini. Before the hits, the fame, and the cultural explosion, it was Martini who approached Sly Stone with a bold idea. Let's start a band that looks and sounds like nobody else. That vision became one of the most revolutionary acts in American music, and Jerry, with his saxophone and steady hand, became its unshakable foundation. Born Gerald L. Martini in Denver, Colorado, Jerry was introduced to music almost as soon as he could walk. By 12, he was playing the ukulele, accordion, and clarinet. But it was the saxophone, which he picked up at 13, that would shape his life. By 15, he was gigging in bars across the Bay Area, already blending technical precision with a raw, street-born energy that caught the attention of older musicians. While attending San Francisco City College, Martini joined Joe Piazza and the Continentals, a local band that provided music for KPIX Dance Party and recorded for various early rock artists. It was there that he first played alongside Sly Stone, a fellow boundary pusher with a restless musical mind. When Martini joined the racially integrated cover band George and Teddy and the Condors, he got his first taste of touring and major label deals. But after a failed attempt to break out in Italy, Martini returned home and reconnected with Sly, this time with a bigger idea. It was Jerry Martini who proposed forming what would become Sly and the Family Stone. His idea was simple but radical, a band that was racially mixed, male and female, funk and rock, gospel and psychedelia. Sly said yes. The rest was music history. From 1967 to 1975, Martini's saxophone was an essential voice in the band's genre-defying sound. On stage, his horn danced with Greg Errico's drums and Larry Graham's bass in a seamless, syncopated storm. On record, he helped define the soul of Dance to the Music, Sing a Simple Song, and Everyday People. While the spotlight often landed on Sly or Larry, Jerry's presence was the glue, solid, versatile, and rooted in purpose. But as with so many stories of greatness, it couldn't last. The group began unraveling in the early 1970s as egos clashed and drug use spiraled out of control. By 1975, the original Family Stone was no more. Martini stayed connected to the scene, appearing on Sly's solo album, High on You, and Larry Graham's 1977 Graham Central Station record, Now Do You Want to Dance. He also joined the hard rock funk fusion band Rubicon, continuing to evolve musically even as his original band fell silent. Unlike some of his peers, Martini never strayed far from the music or his roots. In 2004, he helped form the Family Stone Experience, reuniting with fellow alumni like Greg Errico, Cynthia Robinson, and Dawn Silva. After Cynthia Robinson's passing in 2015, Jerry continued performing with the Family Stone, keeping her memory and the band's mission alive. He appeared at venues across the country, including a memorable performance at La Mirada Theater for the Performing Arts in 2017 and a 2019 summer tour. Now, in 2025, Jerry Martini is 82 years old. He lives a quieter life, but the horn is never far away. And that's all for today's video. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay updated on future content. We hope you found this story insightful. See you in the next video. Goodbye.